In the heart of rural America, nestled between dense forests and winding rivers, lay a small town called Willow Creek. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names, where children played freely in the streets, and where life moved at a slow, predictable rhythm. The town had a share of secrets, though, whispers passed down through generations about things better left undisturbed. At the edge of town, perched precariously on a cliff overlooking the river, stood an old house known as Blackwood Manor. To most people, it was nothing more than a crumbling ruin, a relic of a bygone era. But to those who remembered the stories, it was a place of dread, a site of unspeakable horrors that no one dared to speak of aloud. Decades ago, Blackwood Manor had belonged to Victor Blackwood, a man whose name still inspired fear even long after his death. Locals whispered about him in hushed tones, recounting tales of forbidden rituals and unspeakable acts committed within those walls. Some said he dabbled in occult practices, seeking power beyond human comprehension. Others believed he had summoned something far worse, an ancient entity from another realm, a being so malevolent that it consumed everything it touched. Whatever the truth, Victor's obsession cost him dearly. On a stormy night long ago, the manor burned to the ground, leaving only charred ruins behind. No one ever rebuilt or ventured near it again. Over time, the stories faded into legend. But legends have roots deeper than ashes. And though the physical structure of Blackwood Manor might have crumbled, the evil that dwelled there lingered, waiting patiently for new victims to claim. Years passed, and life in Willow Creek carried on as usual. The younger generation barely remembered the stories of Blackwood Manor, if they'd heard them at all. So when Lena and Tom Parker arrived with their children, Emily, 10, and Ben, 7, no one warned them about the haunted property at the edge of town. Lena and Tom weren't wealthy, but they worked hard and dreamed big. They wanted a home where their kids could grow up freely, a place filled with laughter, love, and memories. When they stumbled upon the abandoned lot during their search, it seemed too good to be true. The real estate agent hesitated, describing the house vaguely as rustic and needing work. Her tone was odd, almost apologetic, but Lena and Tom didn't think much of it. To them, it felt like destiny. They signed the papers without hesitation, eager to start fresh. The first few days were idyllic. The kids explored every inch of the sprawling property, playing hide-and-seek among the overgrown bushes and climbing trees. Tom spent hours fixing up the broken fence and patching holes in the roof. Lena unpacked boxes, humming softly as she arranged furniture and hung curtains. For the first time in years, the Parkers felt hopeful. But hope has a way of blinding us to warning signs. Beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect home, something dark stirred. It began subtly, so subtly that if you weren't paying attention, you might miss it altogether. At first, it was just little things. Doors that closed by themselves. Footsteps echoing upstairs when everyone was downstairs. Cold drafts sweeping through rooms, even though all the windows were shut tight. Emily noticed it first. Her favorite stuffed rabbit missed her. Whiskers kept disappearing from her bed. At first, she thought Ben was playing pranks, but he denied it vehemently. Then one morning, she woke up to find Mr. Whiskers sitting on top of her dresser, with both ears torn off. The sight made her cry, not just because of the damage, but because deep down, she knew something wasn't right. Ben, too, had his own unsettling experiences. He claimed someone whispered his name while he brushed his teeth. When he turned around, the mirror fogged over, and a single word appeared: run. He ran straight to his parents' room, trembling and unable to explain what he'd seen. At dinner one evening, Lena brought up the strange occurrences. Maybe it's just the house settling, Tom suggested, trying to sound reassuring. But Lena shook her head. This feels different, like we're being watched. That night, as they lay in bed, Lena heard it, a faint scratching noise coming from the hallway. She nudged Tom awake. Together, they crept out of their room and followed the sound to the basement door. It creaked open slightly, revealing a sliver of darkness below. Neither of them wanted to go down there, but curiosity won out. Armed with a flashlight, they descended into the musty basement and froze. On the walls were symbols painted in red, circles intersected by jagged lines, forming patterns that looked ancient and ominous. In the center of the room sat a wooden chest, its lid cracked open. Inside were photographs of people tied to chairs, gagged and crying. Some pictures had dates scrawled on the back, dates spanning decades. Lena gasped, "We need to leave, now." The next day, Lena insisted they call someone who could help. After some research, they contacted Mr. Grayson, a paranormal investigator known for solving cases of hauntings across the country. He arrived promptly, carrying a leather satchel filled with tools, cameras, audio recorders, EMF detectors, and journals filled with notes on supernatural phenomena. Grayson examined the photos and symbols in the basement. His expression grew grave. "These aren't random markings," he explained. "They're part of a ritual designed to summon something unnatural, something malevolent." He set up equipment throughout the house, explaining that spirits often left traces of energy, cold spots, electromagnetic disturbances, or visual anomalies that his devices could detect. By nightfall, the entire family gathered in the living room, huddled together as Grayson monitored the readings. Suddenly, the temperature plummeted. The lights flickered wildly, then went out completely. From somewhere above, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the house. Everyone bolted upright. "Stay close," Grayson shouted, grabbing his flashlight. They rushed upstairs to investigate. The source of the scream was Emily's bedroom. The closet door hung wide open, clothes strewn across the floor. On the wall above her bed, words were carved deeply into the plaster. "You can't escape." Ben clung to his mother, sobbing. Even Tom, usually stoic, looked shaken. Grayson muttered under his breath, "This is worse than I thought." Over the next several days, Grayson delved further into the history of Blackwood Manor. He visited the local library, digging through dusty archives and interviewing elderly residents who still remembered the legend. What he uncovered chilled him to the bone. Victor Blackwood hadn't simply performed rituals for wealth or power. According to journal entries written by townsfolk, he had been attempting to summon a malevolent entity known only as the Devourer. This being fed on fear, pain, and despair, growing stronger with each sacrifice offered to it. When the townspeople discovered what Blackwood was doing, they stormed the manor, setting it ablaze. But the fire didn't kill the Devourer. It trapped it within the ruins, biding its time until it could break free again. Grayson warned the Parkers that leaving the house wouldn't be enough. The Devourer had already marked them as prey. If they wanted to survive, they would need to perform a cleansing ritual, one so dangerous that failure meant certain death. The ritual required specific items: salt, candles, holy water blessed by a priest, a silver bell, and a rare herb called wolfsbane. Grayson gave the Parkers a list and instructed them to gather everything quickly. Meanwhile, he prepared protective charms and wards to shield them during the ceremony. As they worked, the haunting intensified. Shadows danced along the walls. Objects flew across rooms, smashing against walls. Voices screamed unintelligible phrases in languages none of them understood. Sleep became impossible. Exhaustion weighed heavily on everyone. Finally, the night of the full moon arrived, the only time the ritual could work. The Parkers and Grayson gathered in the living room, arranging candles in a circle and sprinkling salt around its perimeter. Holy water was poured into bowls placed at cardinal points. The air crackled with tension. Grayson handed Tom a silver bell. "Ring this 3 times once the entity appears," he instructed. "It will weaken it temporarily, giving us a chance to banish it." Lena held Ben tightly, while Emily clutched her father's arm. Everyone braced themselves as Grayson began chanting in Latin, his voice steady despite the chaos erupting around them. Almost immediately, the house reacted violently. Furniture toppled over. Windows shattered. The walls groaned as if alive. A deafening roar shook the foundation, and a monstrous figure materialized in the center of the circle. It was unlike anything they'd ever seen. A towering mass of shadow and flame, with glowing red eyes and claws that dripped black ichor. Its mouth stretched impossibly wide, revealing rows of jagged teeth. It lunged at Grayson, knocking him backward and sending his book of spells skittering across the floor. Panic surged through the family. Lena screamed, clutching Ben closer. Emily darted forward, grabbing the fallen spell book and thrusting it toward her father. "Keep reading," she yelled. Tom fumbled with the pages, his hands trembling. He found the chant and began reciting it haltingly, his voice barely audible over the creature's roars. The devourer thrashed wildly, breaking through the protective barrier. Lena grabbed the bowl of holy water and hurled it at the beast, causing it to shriek in agony. Grayson, battered but alive, crawled back to his feet. "The bell!" he shouted hoarsely. "Now!" Tom rang the silver bell 3 times. Each chime resonated through the house, making the creature recoil. Its form wavered, flickering like smoke caught in a draft. Encouraged, Grayson joined Tom in the chant, their voices growing louder and more confident. But the devourer wasn't done yet. With a final, desperate lunge, it swiped at Emily, knocking her to the ground. Time seemed to slow as Ben broke free from his mother's grasp and ran to his sister. He grabbed a handful of wolfsbane and threw it directly at the creature's face. The reaction was instantaneous. The devourer let out an ear-splitting scream, its body convulsing as flames erupted from within. The house trembled violently, threatening to collapse. Grayson urged everyone to keep chanting, their voices blending into a crescendo of defiance. And then, with one final guttural cry, the devourer dissolved into nothingness. Silence fell. The candles guttered out, plunging the room into darkness. When dawn broke, the Parkers emerged from the wreckage of Blackwood Manor. The house was uninhabitable, its structure weakened by the battle. Exhausted but alive, they vowed never to return. Grayson stayed behind briefly to ensure the entity was truly gone. Before leaving, he warned them, "Evil leaves scars. Be vigilant. It may try to find you again." For weeks afterward, the family struggled to adjust. Nightmares plagued their sleep. Random objects would occasionally move without explanation. Yet, over time, these incidents grew fewer and farther between. Eventually, they rebuilt their lives far away from Willow Creek. But sometimes, late at night, Emily would hear faint whispers outside her window. And deep in the woods surrounding Blackwood Manor, the red symbols in the basement glowed faintly under the moonlight, waiting for their next victims. If this story sent shivers down your spine, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to TaleTok, where nightmares are never far away. Every week, we bring you new tales that twist, haunt, and linger long after the screen goes dark. Share this with someone who loves a good scare, or someone you like to scare. And remember, on TaleTok, you don't just listen to the story, you become part of it. Sleep tight.